America, land of the free, home of the brave. Baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet. The Great Republic. My beloved home straddles North America from sea to shining sea. Phases of territorial expansion comprise a century-long saga ending with America's forays into the Pacific in a new age of industry and empire. The Louisiana Purchase, westward expansion, the Indian Wars, these all loom heavy in the American cultural imagination. This heritage includes the heroes, the mythology, the ideals of a young republic, but also the wars, the death, and grim realities, and the fates of those who won and those who lost. But the tender moments when the United States was young and frail set the stage for America's 19th century of frontiersmen and cavalrymen. Early on, certain matters were settled that set powerful precedents, framing the United States' approach to the great open continent before it. But what if, during those first years, the American nation faltered? Here, the term American nation is taken to mean an Anglo-American nation, that is, a country and people descended from the cultural and political heritage of England. In our present day, many countries can be called Anglo-American to varying degrees, most notably the USA itself and Canada. The Kingdom of England, and after 1707, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, established many colonies in North America and the Caribbean during the 17th and 18th centuries, competing primarily with France, the Netherlands, and Spain. On the eve of the American War of Independence, Great Britain's American colonies consisted of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay, Rhode Island and the Providence Plantations, and Connecticut in New England, the southern colonies of Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia in North America, and the Bermudas, Barbados, the Leeward Islands, and the Bahamas, known as the British West Indies. In addition, there were also colonies in the lands conquered from Britain's foes: Jamaica and East and West Florida, formerly Spanish, the middle colonies of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware in the former Dutch New Netherlands, the former French islands of Dominica, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Grenada, and Tobago in the Caribbean, and the former lands of New France, Nova Scotia, St. John's Island, now Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, Quebec, and Rupert's Land. I suppose this all could have become a United States of America after the 5 intolerable acts and the publishing of the colonists' grievances with the Declaration of Independence, but many factors conspired to limit the new nation to just the 13 famous colonies. Due to British naval dominance, it doesn't appear the new U.S. seriously considered acquisition of the British West Indies. The Continental Congress, however, did voice support to rope the Floridas, the future Maritimes, and Quebec into the rebellion, but the two former were under the domination of the Royal Navy, while Quebec distrusted that its French Catholic culture would be respected under a new, mostly Protestant Anglo country, and ended up defeating an American invasion. Newfoundland and Rupert's Land were apparently too remote and sparsely populated to consider. The United Colonies, after 1781, the United States of America, did finally triumph with Spanish and French help in 1783, though with rather less lands than British America contained. The U.S. border was pushed west to the Mississippi, while Spain reacquired Florida. The remaining British territories would, of course, eventually evolve into modern Canada. Already, the U.S. had effectively forfeited half of North America to their former master, despite one more unsuccessful attempt in 1812. All the same, free of her mother's shackles, America now had to go about the process of ordering herself as an independent nation. In 1781, the 13 colonies formally adopted the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, binding the new states into a loose confederacy with fairly weak institutions. The newborn republic was constantly bedeviled with an empty treasury, public debt, unpaid soldiers, squabbling government, and interstate disputes. Some things never change. One of its first schemes to raise money and stabilize its freshly baked constitution was called the State Cessions. 7 of the states had claims west of the Appalachian Mountains as a result of royal charters, when most of North America was poorly explored or mapped. The smaller states that had no such claims were upset at the disproportionate opportunity for expansion their neighbors had, so it was decided that the 7 states would cede their western claims, with some exception and nuance, to the United States government, while disputed boundaries would be resolved. In exchange, the states also gave their public debts to the national government. The state cessions weren't completed until 1802, but calmed the smaller states enough to ratify the newly penned Constitution of the United States by 1790, replacing the Articles of Confederation once they were found to be inadequate for the new nation. Thus, early and perhaps very serious conflicts were avoided, and the cessions set the precedent of the federal government assuming newly acquired territory before it was organized as states, instead of the states each running their own campaigns of conquest. But suppose this all didn't go down like it did, if history zigged instead of zagged. The state cessions began during the Revolution, but what if they didn't? What if Virginia, having won control of the Illinois county, decided they wanted to keep it, or New York tried to make good on its conflicting claims in the same region? What if the many debates for the future constitution stalled out? The small states couldn't trust they would be respected with only proportional representation, or the larger states agonizing over the disproportionate voice the smaller ones had in the Senate, or even no infamous 3/5 clause, with northern states rightfully crying, "It's not fair to have non-citizen slaves count towards your political population." There was no shortage of early American disputes and differences that could have ended the American experiment before it could truly begin. If the states couldn't come to terms on either land or government, the United States was as good as dead, a crippling blow to the legitimacy of republicanism in this age of young ideas. Of course it would have fallen apart without a monarch. Unable to reconcile their differences, one by one states leave the Union. Virginia, I believe, is the most likely candidate to go its own way, attempting to successfully subdue the native peoples in the Illinois county and settle it to strengthen their claim to the region. The largest and most populous state on their doorstep, Maryland and Delaware, might stick together, maybe with Pennsylvania as the Chesapeake Union. The New England states would totally stay together for protection, disputing what would have become Vermont with New York, which fights with the Chesapeake over New Jersey, both wanting to maintain free navigation rights on the Hudson and Delaware rivers. The Carolinas and Georgia might remain separate, or toy with the idea of union in the face of Virginian growth and dominance. This divided America can't muster the resources to sustain a national program of westward expansion, and soon British commercial interests return, playing rival states off against one another, securing markets for the burgeoning Industrial Revolution. The French Revolution still occurs, and maybe Napoleon comes to power, but with no United States to sell Louisiana to, it's a good question what becomes of the vast hinterland of North America. With no united American pressure on Louisiana, do the Spanish even return it to the French, or do they attempt to settle it, and it follows the destiny of colonial New Spain, the future Mexico? Perhaps the many tribes and nations of the West breathe a sigh of relief that soldiers and settlers won't wage war for their land, at least in the same force as the United States did. It's fun to speculate on what might have been, but going too far risks ever stranger scenarios. Despite how easy it might have been for the United States to fail so early, whether by the wisdom and talent of her founding fathers, the resolve of her people, divine providence, or all three, the United States managed to stumble long enough to fully walk, and embark on an odyssey of growth and expansion that eventually transformed the young republic into a major power, dominating her continent in a way few other countries have, and even a world superpower. This is a useful case study, for the British colonies shared America with both the Spanish and Portuguese, and the fate that might have befallen the United States ended up the one that descended upon the Spanish colonies, a great Columbia as they might have been. Next time, we'll go south of the border and look at what happened in the Spanish Empire. Until then, thank you for watching.